question is, you were super young when you founded the company, and how did you get to it? Why did you decide to become an entrepreneur and founding Carvolution? And how has your learning journey been the last few years growing alongside the company?
Yeah. Well, first of all, actually, I still consider myself young. So before answering that, what made me become an entrepreneur? It's not as if I had like the plan, I want to be an entrepreneur one day since I was like, I don't know, 10 years old. But yeah, I enjoy horse riding. So you need money pretty early in your life. So I had to get a first job pretty early. And I ended up working for a startup in horse riding, like an e-commerce. And this was my first touch point with a startup. I didn't know back then what a startup was because it was like when I was, I don't know, 15 years old. And I really enjoyed it. So I think this was the first spark to be like, wow, you get somewhere, there's a problem, nobody tells you how to solve it, and you can just do something. So yeah. And then, I mean, yeah, I was really young, but for me, it wasn't like, I didn't take it as a big decision. And I think this was the nice thing, being so young, that was like, look, if it doesn't work, I call my parents, I move back in at home, and I can still do my master. So I could take it like in a very light, it felt light to become a founder because I didn't have much pressure. So, and then how is it growing up like along your startup? I don't know in how far it's different from other like careers or perspectives. What I certainly know is like you have a certain cost of being an entrepreneur, like it needs a lot of dedication, a lot of focus. So while others did in their 20s crazy travels, I'm since like almost 7 years working on Carvolution. But for me, it's totally worth it. It's the compromise I enjoy taking. And I think if you ask what I've learned, well, I'm learning at a very fast pace. I'm learning so much, and what I learned, that there's always something new to discover. Like every time you think you took a good turn, there's another one. And I think it keeps me very open-minded. And I think this is a lot with entrepreneurship and why I also enjoy it. So there's no biggest learnings. I think the biggest learnings is that you always have to keep learning and to keep this open, curious mind. So it was a long answer to a big question.
Learned a lot, and doing a great job is obvious because Carvolution is such a strong brand in Switzerland. It became super strong in the last few years. And as you are the founder, which is responsible of marketing, so building that brand, how did you do that? So how did you achieve this strong brand recognition in such a short amount of time?
I mean, there are two things people like to say about marketing, right? Either you're brave and you have money. We were in a very fortunate situation that we had brave ideas and we had money to spread it. So I think this is not like just me doing it, but the company's in a very good setup, which allowed us to say, hey, we have a good product and we're in a phase where we can really advertise for it. And then I think certain things were also luck. I mean, we always knew we need to be a brand that people trust. So we knew that this personal approach would be important. And then there's a lot of testing, right? You don't see that, all the testing which we do in the back to see, okay, what works, what doesn't work, what copy, what script. And this, we were just always like, we want to do it even a little bit better. And we were very lucky that things that worked well were things we could do in-house. And this just allowed us to move fast. And yeah, but at the end, the brand you build in marketing, every other department has to deliver the same in the company. Because if we just say, hey, we have great customer service, and then it's not great, people will not trust this marketing anymore. So it's really an effort of the full company, of every single person working at Carvolution.
One thing of your marketing mix is obviously you being the face of Carvolution. And many founders ask me how much PR they should do, how much in front of the public they should be. Is it positive for the business? So how was your experience, and why did you decide for doing that? And what kind of impact did it have on the journey of Carvolution?
So looking back at when we took that decision, I was just the cheapest actor you could get. Looking back at it now, it was like, oh, it was very aligned with our values of being down to earth, wanting this trust. So things that we had to do back then happened to be very aligned with our strategy and our culture and the brand positioning. I think it really depends on the business and also of the founders. If I would recommend it to everybody, I think for us, it felt like the right thing. This is why we did it. However, I also think that a brand has to work without its individual founders. Like, it's also a job of a founder to build a company that can work without them. Like, it's also like the job of a leader to make sure their team can work without them. And this, of course, a challenge we have now, where we have to think about it, how to work with that. But yeah, it works well because it's so honest. And I think this is what people feel like. I feel like Carvolution. It sounds very cheesy and terrible, but it's just how it is. It's not a story. And I think this is why it works. But now also, after a couple of years, the brand also starts to stand independently from me. But still people connect me to Carvolution. It's nothing we want to erase or remove. But for us, it works. But I wouldn't recommend it to everybody. I think you have to really want it. It's not something you do because you have to. But for us, luckily, yeah, it was cheap, it was honest, it worked, it's fun for me, it's fun for the brand, so why not?
And did it affect your personal life positively or negatively?
Well, people who know me personally know that I don't really care about this connection too much in my private life. Like, that people who knew me before, they're like, yeah, it's just how it is. And so actually I try not to let it impact me. But of course, it's funny if I'm having dinner somewhere, like, you can see people like, is she that? And like, yeah, I'm the girl with the cars. Do you need one or two? So I just make a joke out of that. But other than that, there was never any negative impact or anything. Yeah.
Talking about personal impact and personal growth in an industry, you just said it, the girl with the car. So that's an industry which is pretty much male dominated, and we have unfortunately not that many women founders. So what was your experience being a woman founder and also in this male-driven industry? So was there any kind of impact, or how did it affect you?
Well, when I started, to be honest, I was super naive because I haven't even thought about that. I thought a bit more, okay, I'm entering innovation, mobility, and I wasn't like aware that this would be a male thing. So unless a journalist and people start asking, like, are you aware that you're the only one here? Like, I'm like, yeah, now that you say it, I am. But I think it was this confidence that I'm not doing anything weird that didn't let other people let me feel that. But also then with the funding that you mentioned, well, yeah, I can read the statistics. Obviously, it's a serious problem that female founders don't get the funds. From my personal story, I never made a bad experience. So what I tell myself, like, my biggest chance is trying to be a good role model, saying, hey, look, you can get the funds, but I cannot tell you the story of how difficult it is. So this is always a bit the dilemma. I mean, obviously there are not enough. I made very good experiences, so I cannot really comment on this. And I just think you should try to go and to be exposed, and it shouldn't be a reason not to do something only because there's few women somewhere. So yeah, I don't know if this answers your question more or less.
Oh, it does, and beautiful said. And we at redalpine are also looking for female founders, and we love if we meet them, and and we see also the number increasing over the years, by the way. So there are more and more jumping into the venture world. Despite driving marketing at the company, you're also a great builder of culture. And you recently even contributed to a book, which is called Wo wir gerne arbeiten by Ruedi Nützi. And what defines a good or great startup culture for you? And what kind of principles do you implement at Carvolution in order to achieve that?
So culture for me was always something super abstract, like who the fuck needs culture? Obviously, we will enjoy going to work and it will be nice. So when I learned those things at university, it was like, I don't understand why we would spend time about that. But now building the company, so going into different stages where at first you're only 5 people, then you're 30, and then it goes up, you understand how important it is to be very clear on how you behave. And the only thing that really works for me is you have to behave how you want other people to behave. You cannot be, let's say, not patient if you want other people to be patient with each other. So you have to really define what works best for you. And for me, the only thing that works for me is really being authentic, like saying, hey, I'm struggling to lead you. How are we going to do that? So I went always like full into, I have to communicate with my team. And then together we can create that culture. So what I basically said is, so culture is not my problem. It's the problem of all of us. And by this, we could really create this culture where we communicate well, where we have a good atmosphere. And at the end, when is a culture good? I think it's when you like working with those people. Everything else is not a good culture, like it's nothing you want to go. And what you also realize as an entrepreneur, at one point people decide to leave your company. And then you often hear like, oh, you're a bad leader, it's about culture. And this, I really got hurt when the first people left. I was like, but what's happening here? Is something wrong? Do we have to fix something? What's happening? And then I also realized, look, there's simply some cultures that are not right for some people. And they're to also be open. Sometimes you're a bad manager for somebody. And also to take that and to say, and that's all right. Like, and this is the culture I believe is good, is healthy. If you try to build up a culture which is right for everybody, you don't have a culture, I also think. But I believe there's many theories, and I still will learn a lot about culture, I hope, in the next couple of years.
No, I can remember those lectures because we studied together.
Yeah.
I mean, leading by example and having the founding team define what their values are and what they want to be, or what culture they want to have in the company is super important and very well said. So looking at Carvolution, what are the biggest learnings of the last few years? So I must ask this question because every time you get another answer. So I would love to hear what you are saying.
What's the biggest learnings? You know, it always depends of what has happened in the last couple of days, because this is always like closest to my memory. But trying to zoom out a bit of that, I would say things you believe matter a lot never matter as much as you think. It's always like the big picture. Like sometimes we try to put a lot of energy and focus into one certain thing because it seems to be the killer criteria at that certain moment. And I think sometimes you have to reflect out and to say, hey, is it worth all that energy? And as an entrepreneur, we're really like, what we love is this doing mode. We like to do things. And sometimes we have to go a bit more in the mode, okay, are we doing the right thing here? And, or at least for me, it's how it is. And this is a bit the learning to say sometimes, let's think a little bit longer about what we're trying to do to then do it properly. And also not to freak out too fast if something doesn't work, because it's only a small part of a bigger thing. And things also hold together. Like you also see a puzzle picture if one puzzle piece is not in there. It's not the complete puzzle, but you can still see the picture.
I mean, it's super hard, right? To find the right balance to think things through entirely and move fast and break things, right?
Yeah. But probably also when you scale, there's more things to think about. It's not like everything's open. So you have to say, and what is the impact of this or that? So complexity goes up, which is also very interesting. Yeah.
and looking into the future and the bright future of Carvolution. So what's next?
You know, every time I say something about the future in an interview, I listen to it later and I'm like, oh, how wrong could it be? So the next big move or something, I don't think we need one next big move. I think we're at the point where we need small little moves always in the right direction. And this is our next big move at the end. And yeah, always like when you think about milestones and everything, I believe the milestones are not as big as they seem on paper, but it's really every day improving a bit, working a bit more, more things come together. This is what we really need to stick on the right direction, not the big bangs everybody talks about. So yeah, the next big move is more little steps into the right direction.
Sounds good. Perfect. Nice.
Thank
Thank you very
you.
much. Very efficient interview, huh?
Yes, finished.